In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of RIN in English News with me, Nima Shitsas. Leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, has endorsed a government request to vest restricted stocks of dozens of government-run companies that are owned by tens of millions of Iranians. In a decree issued on Tuesday, Ayatollah Khamenei ordered the government to prepare the required conditions for owners of the Justice shares to be able to trade their stocks in the market and reach the profits. In his decree to the government, Ayatollah Khamenei regretted the fact that vesting of Justice shares has taken so many years, as the law stipulates a minimum of 2 years as the holding period for the shares. The leader also set a series of conditions for allowing the Justice shares to become tradable, saying shareholders should be able to choose which government-run firm they want to own a stake in. He said the government departments are required to prepare conditions for a listing of state-run companies as soon as possible. Iranian president stressed the need for the expansion of a privatization program based on which state-owned companies are offering their shares in the stock market. Speaking in a meeting of the Government Economic Coordination Headquarters on Tuesday, President Hassan Rouhani called for more government-owned companies and big enterprises to be listed on the stock market. The president also stressed the importance of completing major semi-completed projects, saying the completion of semi-finished projects, which have over 80% progress, should be seriously pursued. Emphasizing the need for supporting the production and industry sectors, President Rouhani said, in the current situation, it is necessary to provide foreign currency for basic goods, especially medicine, and meet the needs of people and the production sector. Further in the meeting, details of a program for selling government-owned companies' surplus assets were also discussed. The government has envisioned various strategies for compensating the next year's budget deficit due to the fall in oil revenues, transferring government's assets using forex reserves, selling Islamic bonds, and withdrawing 450 trillion riyals from National Development Fund were among the strategies that have been approved by the country's Supreme Council of Economic Coordination. Elsewhere, President Rouhani hailed public achievements in the face of coronavirus, which he said were due to people's observing the advice put in place by experts in fighting the rapidly spreading virus and trusting expertise. Addressing a meeting with psychologists, sociologists, and social activists, President Rouhani added, the scholars and elites also came to help us, so they all together were able to improve power and capability of the people. Stressing the need for stronger communication with the scientific centers and societies as reliable sources for the people in fighting the COVID-19, he said, caution still needs to be exercised, but excessive fear and anxiety about the coronavirus is worse than the virus itself and can disrupt people's lives. President Rouhani said people and government, hand in hand, did a great work in the face of the highly contagious disease. He said coronavirus left a heavy impact on public health and lives, especially when the country was simultaneously grappling with the sanctions, contending that the issue of coronavirus was not merely an issue of sanitary and treatment, but rather a political, economic, and social issue as it affected all aspects of our lives. President Rouhani further noted that, in addition to coronavirus, Iran is solely facing sanctions, standing on its own feet, has no ally to help it, and its only ally is its own nation, and its solution is the resistance of the society. President Rouhani also stressed that everyone should come to the scene and join hands to be able to overcome the crisis. President Rouhani also had telephone conversations with Armenian Prime Minister and his South African opposite number on Tuesday. Omid Haydari has more.
During a phone conversation with Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, President Hassan Rouhani congratulated the Armenian nation on the occasion of the holy month of Ramadan. The two also exchanged information on the steps to fight the COVID-19. Both sides expressed condolences to the victims of the epidemic. They stressed the need for joint international efforts and bilateral cooperation to defy the major challenges facing mankind. The parties expressed satisfaction that despite the standing logistics-related restrictions, Armenia and Iran continue their economic and trade cooperation. The two sides reaffirmed their readiness to take appropriate measures with a view of restoring the pre-crisis level of trade and economic cooperation while maintaining the restrictions imposed due to the global pandemic. Meantime, in a phone conversation with his South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa, President Rouhani said the United States has escalated sanctions against Iran, adding, Washington is violating World Health Organization's regulations and is preventing dispatch of health and medical items to Iran. President Rouhani called for developing economic relations, sharing experiences, exchanging information, and reinforcing health and scientific cooperation in the field of fighting coronavirus. President Rouhani and Ramaphosa referred to the background of economic relations between two countries and highlighted the importance of taking advantage of new capacities for developing cooperation and implementing joint projects. They also stressed reinforcing international cooperation for fighting the U.S. inhumane sanctions against oppressed people of Palestine and making efforts to establish peace in Syria and Yemen. President Rouhani also pointed to the U.S. illegal and inhumane measures against Iran, saying, while we are facing coronavirus pandemic in the world, unfortunately the U.S. has escalated illegal sanctions against Iranians. Referring to South Africa as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, the Iranian president said, we expect the country to underscore its opposition against the U.S. unilateralism and illegal sanctions imposed against Iran for the UN and international community. For his part, Ramaphosa said, we are aware of the U.S. unfair and illegal acts against Iran and will continue our support of Iran.
Iran's health ministry has confirmed 1,112 new cases of COVID-19 infection, increasing the total number of cases to 92,584. Health ministry spokesman said on Tuesday that 71 people have died in the past 24 hours from the coronavirus, raising the death toll to 5,877. Kianush Jahanpur further noted that 72,439 patients have so far recovered and been discharged from hospitals. Jahanpur also said so far 442,590 coronavirus tests have been taken in the country. Now, the coronavirus COVID-19 is affecting 210 countries and territories around the world, with 3,106,000 active coronavirus cases, 214,429 deaths, and the recovery of 944,136 people. After phone conversation between French and the United States presidents, it was set for the United Nations Security Council to have a video conference on coronavirus. The U.S., with 1,022,259 coronavirus cases, almost has the record of one-third of the global COVID-19 active cases. The U.S. also has the highest number of fatalities, with 57,862 people. The U.S. President Donald Trump is in deep trouble over his handling the COVID-19 impact on economy and society, as well as his handling of the situation. The state of New York is the epicenter of the virus in the U.S., and its governor says we are worried about the second wave of the pandemic already. Europe has over 1,300,000 active corona cases. The latest reports from the World Health Organization indicates that most of the COVID-19 fatalities in Europe are elderly, handicaps, and the needy. And Britain, that has now more than 157,149 corona cases and 21,092 deaths, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has told people not to be waiting for lifting restrictions. Johnson has returned to Downing Street after recovering from coronavirus illness. France has 165,842 corona cases and 23,293 deaths. However, the French government is easing restrictions. The nursing houses in France are also a major issue, with one nursing home worker describing a horrible condition. The person asking not to be identified said some people that had died were left for 3 days at their rooms waiting to be transferred. Italy has 201,505 corona cases with 27,359 deaths. The government has said schools will remain closed for 4 more months. European Union's crucial tourism sector has severely been hit by the COVID-19. Here's more.
In a number of European Union countries, tourism normally accounts for up to 30% of economic activity. In Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece and Croatia, 15% of the workforce were employed by the industry. COVID-19 has changed all that. EU tourism ministers have just concluded an emergency video conference.
The new EU budget must include tourism at a higher level. Originally, tourism did not play a prominent role in the MFF. Now there is a unique stance by ministers that tourism should account for as much as 20 to 25% of the EU budget.
Also on Monday, the European Parliament's Finance Committee held a meeting in Brussels. There was criticism of the EU's response to the crisis thus far. Lawmakers relayed the wishes of citizens.
They ask for more coordination at EU level, and we need to be more ambitious in terms of our vision for the future of Europe. They ask for financial measures that take into account their needs.
EU unemployment levels will break all previous records this year. Some estimates suggest it could reach between 20 and 30%. Economists say high unemployment creates a vicious circle.
To see a fully fledged recovery, we need both. We need external demand and domestic demand. And for domestic demand to kick up, high unemployment is poison.
In other developments, it has been widely reported that the EU watered down criticism towards China in one of its reports on the use of disinformation during the COVID-19 crisis. It is claimed this happened following pressure from Beijing.
I absolutely refute and dispute any indications or claims that in our reporting we are bowing to any kind of external pressure.
Much of the focus in the EU now is on lifting lockdowns. Member states appear to be adopting very different approaches, which is raising concern. The European Commission warns the lifting of restrictions must be coordinated across the bloc and happen based on the advice of epidemiologists. The Commission insists easing lockdowns needs to be phased, gradual and coherent. Jerome Hughes, Press TV, Brussels.
And that's a wrap for now. Goodbye.